The second largest state in the United States, which has been swept by an unusual winter storm, icy rains, power outages and pipe bursts. More than 70 people have been reported dead across the country due to a treacherous winter storm. After the big freeze, let's not talk about the big thaw. One of the most sought-after services in Texas right now are those of a plumber. The wintry weather exposed a water nightmare. Up and down the state, people either drove away from their homes or came back to find them badly damaged. Pipes, valves and tanks had broken after being frozen over across the state. The local plumbing businesses have been swamped with calls to fix the widespread water disruption, but several houses are faced with damages that might take weeks or even months to recover. Then comes a high-flying senator of Texas, Ted Cruz, who was seen helping a damaged household in Houston. A video from a local Houston TV station shows the senator removing damaged carpet and other debris from a house damaged by a pipe burst. The Republican senator of Texas was criticized heavily on social media and by residents and other politicians alike for flying out to Mexico last week for a vacation to Cancun during the peak winter storm. And as of Monday morning, more than 15,000 people were still without power across the state, and some 8.8 million people, which is nearly one-third of Texas and its total population, are now experiencing water shortages. While authorities are still working on restoring public utilities, people have come out on the streets to distribute bottled water in Dallas. Locals and non-profit groups have organized food and water distribution sites throughout the massive state. Volunteers from schools and food banks handed out apples, tortillas and water. Meanwhile, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee delivered pizza and water to the residents in Houston. Last week, when millions of Texans were shivering in the dark, a few lucky ones could still get to turn their lights on in their homes. Those residents woke up to outrageous amounts being charged in their electricity bills. Tens of thousands of dollars charged just for keeping the lights on. After the outcry, Governor Greg Abbott banned power companies from billing customers or disconnecting their power for non-payment. The Texas governor has announced that he expects all power to be fully restored to every house by this weekend.
If they did not have access to power, the reason for it is because of their local power provider, where they still need to get hookups or there could be power lines down. Based upon the speed that I've seen power get restored, I suspect that all power will be fully restored across the state of Texas to every house either later tonight or tomorrow. First, to be clear, we will not end this session until the state of Texas is, in all of its power generation capabilities, is fully winterized, so we never go through this again. With regard to how it's going to be funded, every possibility is on the table. We will consider whatever options. We need to figure out the strategy first.
Weather-related disasters used to be called as acts of God. Events that are rare, unforeseen, and above all, nobody's fault. But is that the case in Texas? In the massive south-central state of the United States, electricity comes primarily from fossil fuels. But that did not stop the Republican leaders of the state from peddling the lie that power outages were the fault of renewable energy. Never mind the frozen wind turbines, which only represent a small fraction of the energy lost to failures in natural gas production during the freeze. Republicans attacked the Green New Deal. And this whole conversation was playing out while people were freezing to death in their homes or dying of carbon monoxide poisoning in their cars. There is a far more complex reality behind the grid that was not prepared for extreme weather. According to a report from Wall Street Journal, the electric grid in Texas is built for efficiency but is not built for climate resilience. This is all because of a fundamental flaw of free market in Texas. The state's electricity is not governed by rules or a federal system. The quest for efficiency and low cost led to underinvestment and poorly prepared energy facilities for the cold weather. Basically, Texas has its own grid to avoid dealing with the feds. The state's grid is run by a couple of independent agencies. The utility companies are deregularized and are all a part of free markets. This train wreck that pushed Houston electricity wholesale price from $22 per megawatt per hour, that is to about $9,000 megawatt hour. The widespread failure in Texas, Oklahoma and Louisiana, if the face of a winter snap, throws a light on what some see as the derelict state of America's power infrastructure. In the single-digit temperatures, pipelines froze up because there was some moisture in the gas. Pumps slowed. Diesel engines to power, the pumps refused to start. One power plant after another went offline. Even a reactor at one of the state's 2 nuclear plants went dark, hobbled by frozen equipment. Texas is unique among the states for having a grid of its own that is almost entirely cut off from the rest of the country. This has prevented Texas from importing much electricity as its power plants went down. The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission and the North American Electric Reliability Corporation both will now investigate the causes of this year's failure. Texas has refused to join interstate electrical grids and railed against energy regulation. That is, rallied against energy regulation. Now it is having to answer to millions of residents who were left without power in last week's snowstorm. WION World is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.